Have you ever tried to defend yourself in an argument, only to feel your eyes fill before your words even form? Your chest burns, your mind races, and you know exactly what you want to say, yet your throat tightens, and your tears betray you in the very moment you're trying to be strong. What hurts isn't the crying, it's the look on the other person's face, the sudden softness, the impatience, the quiet judgment. Why are you crying? It's not that serious. In an instant, you feel small, powerless. Misread again. Like the whole conversation has shifted from the real issue to what's wrong with you. And later, alone, you ask yourself, why can't I stay calm like everyone else? Why do I fall apart the moment things get tense? Why do I look like the weak one, even when I know I'm not? No one ever told you this, so let me say it gently and clearly. You don't cry because you're weak. You cry because your nervous system has been carrying far more than anyone can see. Your tears aren't ruining the conversation. They're your body whispering, "I'm overwhelmed. Please stop." And today, we're going to understand that whisper, and why this reaction is not a flaw, but a sign of how strong you've been for far too long. Have you ever fallen apart right when you needed strength? Maybe you'll recognize yourself in these moments. You're in a meeting, someone says something untrue about you, and you try to correct it. But the more you speak, the tighter your throat gets. You look away because you can feel your eyes burning, not from sadness, but from years of being misunderstood in rooms where your voice never seemed to land, or you're arguing with someone you love. You've held it together, tried to stay calm, tried to explain your hurt, but the moment they say, "You're too sensitive," something inside you collapses. You're not crying because you're wrong. You're crying because they touched the bruise you've hidden for years. Maybe it's with family. Their tone rises just a little, and suddenly it's like your body time travels. You hear every old command. Don't talk back. Don't make trouble. Keep quiet. And before you can stop it, your eyes well up, not out of weakness, but because your past still lives in your nervous system. And the hardest part is seeing yourself through their eyes, someone who can't control their emotions, someone too dramatic, someone who needs to grow up, when in reality, you've spent your whole life holding things together so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. So every time conflict appears, your body chooses the only protection it learned. Soften, shrink, cry, before anything gets worse. And here's the part most people never think to ask. If your reaction feels bigger than the moment, if tears come before words every time tension rises, then maybe the real question isn't, why am I like this? Maybe the real question is, where did this reaction begin? What if your tears began long before today? The truth is, your tears didn't begin with the argument you had today. They began years ago, in the moments when you were taught, quietly, subtly, that your feelings were too much and your voice was something others didn't want to hear. You learned early that speaking up only made the room colder, the silence heavier, the disappointment sharper. And so you trained yourself to hold everything in, to stay small, to keep the peace no matter the cost. Every time you were misunderstood and no one let you explain, a little part of you folded inward. Every time a voice rose and you froze instead of defending yourself, your body made another note. Don't speak. It's safer. And every time you swallowed words trembling at the edge of your throat, that lesson settled deeper into your nervous system. Over time, your body came to believe one thing. If you speak too loudly, you risk losing safety. So now, as an adult, the moment someone's tone sharpens or their eyes narrow, your body doesn't pause to check the facts. It reaches straight into the past. It pulls forward the old instinct. Stay quiet, soften, survive, long before your mind can reason or respond. And suddenly, the emotion you feel is larger than the moment in front of you, because you're not just reacting to today. You're reacting to every moment you once had to endure in silence. You're not crying because of this one argument. You're crying because your body still believes you're that child, the one who wasn't allowed to protest, who wasn't allowed to take up space, who wasn't allowed to feel too loudly. Your tears today are not proof of weakness. They are the echo of all the times you had to silence yourself in order to stay safe. And this is exactly where we turn the page. Because once you understand the pain beneath the reaction, you're ready to see what your nervous system is really doing, and why your body reacts before your mind ever gets the chance to catch up. What is your body really trying to protect you from? Now that we've seen the wounds beneath the surface, we can go deeper into what your body is actually doing in those moments when you cry while you're angry. The most important thing to understand is this: your reaction isn't random, and it is not a personal flaw. It is a chain of very human, very logical processes that completely match the experiences you went through as a child. There are three main psychological and nervous system mechanisms working together. When they combine, they create that angry but crying response that feels so out of your control. Once you see them clearly, what you're experiencing starts to make a lot more sense. First is emotional overload. You're processing too many layers at once. In a conflict, other people might just hear words, respond, and throw out arguments. But you are processing the meaning of their words, the feeling of being misunderstood, their tone and emotional energy, and the fear of disappointing them or making things worse. Your brain isn't just analyzing the content. It's weighing risk, the relationship, expectations, old memories, fairness, and your self-worth, all at the same time. That's why a small argument with someone else can feel like a full emotional storm to you. When too much emotional data floods in, your nervous system has to lower the intensity, and tears become one of the fastest ways to do that. It's not that you're weak. You're simply carrying and processing far more than anyone around you can see. Second is hypervigilance. Your body is more sensitive than average to signs of danger. For someone who grew up in a tense or unpredictable environment, the body becomes extra alert. A voice rises just a little. The silence in the room tightens. An expression turns slightly colder, and you feel it instantly. You're not calmly dissecting what's happening. Your body has already hit the alarm. Your system quickly decides you're under threat, even if, on the surface, the other person is just talking a bit faster or a bit louder. This constant high alert is called hypervigilance. The advantage is that you are deeply perceptive. The downside is that any conflict can overwhelm you very quickly. Their voice goes up one notch, your heart rate jumps, your breathing turns shallow, and your tears are already lining up, ready to release pressure. Third is safety override. Tears as a safety valve when your system is overloaded. Under stress, your body has two main jobs: keep you awake enough to deal with the situation, and keep you safe enough not to break. When the stress rises too fast, your brain activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part designed to calm you down. Your tears are the visible part of that process. This isn't you breaking down. It's a survival mechanism, similar to how your body forces you to gasp for air when you're out of breath. When you're emotionally overloaded, it forces you to let out some of that pressure through tears, so you don't explode on the inside. If you pay attention, you may notice that after you cry, you can often speak more clearly, breathe more evenly, and think more logically. Your body has done its job. It kept you from reaching a level of stress that felt dangerous. All of these mechanisms, overload, hypervigilance, and safety override, come together to form something deeply human. You're not crying because you're weak. You're crying because your nervous system is working extremely hard. To help you see this even more clearly, let's move into a simple image. A glass that's already full, needing just one more drop to overflow. What if your tears are simply overflow? Imagine your body as a glass sitting in an old childhood kitchen. When you were small, every time you were misunderstood, a single drop fell into that glass. Every time you were yelled at, another drop. Every time you wanted to speak up but had to swallow your words, another quiet drop slipped in, unnoticed by everyone except your nervous system. Year after year, that glass kept filling. Not because anyone consciously wanted to fill it, but because you were never allowed to pour anything out. You learned to smile when you were angry, say nothing when you were hurt, soften your voice when you were in chaos inside. People praised you for being mature, well-behaved, so understanding. They never saw that you were holding a glass filled right to the brim. Then, one day, as an adult, you're in an argument. One slightly unfair comment. One sharp tone. One judgmental look. Other people see it as just a small thing, just a tiny drop of water. But for your glass, which has been full for years, that one extra drop is all it takes for water to spill over. Your tears are that spilled water. No one sees when the glass started filling. They only see the last drop. They say you're overreacting, but they have no idea how much you've already been holding. You can also picture your body as a machine that's been running almost nonstop for years. It still runs, still works, still shows up. But when you start speeding up, getting angry, stressed, defending yourself, the engine heats up quickly. Before it burns out, the safety system turns on. It cools itself down in the only way it knows. By releasing pressure. For you, those tears are the sound of a safety valve opening on a machine that's been overworked for far too long. It's not that you're weak, or that the machine is broken. It's simply telling you it has been pushed beyond its limits and needs relief. There's another version of this image that many sensitive people recognize. You are like an extremely sensitive fire alarm. A bit of smoke that no one else notices. You already feel, not because you enjoy reacting strongly, but because your danger detection system is many times faster than most people's. When stress hits a certain point, the alarm goes off, not to punish you, but to warn you before something worse happens. All of these images point to one simple truth. Your tears are not a failure. They are a sign that you've carried a lot, for a long time, and gone much further than anyone realizes. And if you can start seeing your tears not as a mistake, but as a signal, the way you treat yourself can begin to change. What changes when you stop calling yourself weak? When you picture the full glass or the overworked machine, one thing becomes clear. The real issue was never the final drop. It was everything you've been holding for years. Quietly, patiently, without anyone really noticing. And this leads to a truth many people never get to hear. You don't cry because you're weak. You cry because you've been strong for far too long. This kind of strength doesn't show on the outside. It lives in the moments you stayed silent to keep the peace. The times you swallowed hurt so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. The times you endured unfairness simply because speaking up felt dangerous. Growing up in a world where emotions were too much, you carried what no child should have carried alone. So now, as an adult, you're not practiced in arguing. You're practiced in enduring. And when you endure just a little beyond your limit, your body sends the only signal it knows. Overflow. That isn't overreacting. It's a reaction shaped perfectly by your past. You learned early on that other people's comfort mattered more than your own, so your body still tries to protect them first and you second, with tears as the quickest way to soften conflict. But here is the shift you're ready for now. You no longer have to live like that child. You have a voice. You have the right to be angry without being seen as wrong, the right to express yourself without feeling like a burden. Your body has been protecting you your entire life in the only way it knew. Now it simply needs a new kind of permission. It's okay. I'm safe now. I'm allowed to speak. And once you understand this, something inside you softens, as if someone is finally standing with you, even if that someone is you. From here on, your tears don't have to feel like failure. They can feel like a message, a reminder that you've carried too much for too long and deserve a gentler way to live. So the next time your throat tightens and your eyes burn, pause for one quiet breath and whisper inside, "It's okay. This is just the glass overflowing. I'm not broken. I'm learning a new way to exist." You don't need to fix yourself or force yourself to be stronger. You only need to understand that this reaction once kept you safe when you had no other tools. Now, with more awareness and more kindness toward yourself, you can teach your body a different truth, that you are safe, that your voice matters, and that you no longer need tears to be heard. There will still be moments when you cry while angry, and that's okay. It's part of relearning how to exist in a world where you once only endured. If you carry one thing from this, let it be this: you are not weak. You are deeper than people realize. And your body, in its own language, is simply reminding you that you deserve to be heard. Starting now.